trying to really think about what a person is as he's almost trying to create a person. And so everything comes back to the core. And this is what he spent a lot of time thinking about: what is a person, what makes a person different from machines, because that's what will separate when the first successful AI comes out. You know, that will be what separates them from just a machine.
And we're live.
Domo arigato, miso roboto, domo arigato. Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto, mata oemata. If you can't guess already, today's podcast is about Lex Fridman, who's a
Robot.
computer researcher at MIT, an AI specialist. That's his day job, but in the next 20 minutes or so, we'll be getting into all of the other things that he does that interest us even more than that. So there he is, Lex Fridman. What do you know, Dan?
What I know about Lex Fridman, what the Wikipedia page just told me, we've just been discussing. I did know, but anyway, it's nice to just brush up beforehand. He's a researcher at MIT. So I first come across Lex on the Joe Rogan, obviously, where we find all the best people. And actually, funny enough, on the first Joe Rogan, he was a little bit timid, I found, and he was kind of unusual. And when you read the little bio, it says what he does, and he's an AI guy. You know, he's big in the AI
Artificial
field.
intelligence.
So I guess it means he's researching to help develop artificial intelligence. And it's kind of funny because at first glance, mate, I don't know whether he was particularly stiff in that one or just it takes a bit of time to get used to him, but he comes across like a robot. He almost is. If there was going to be a robot, you know, the way he talks is very like.
It's very measured.
He's got quite a very measured. Exactly. He's very measured. And but then I mean, I don't know how. You do a bit first, and then we'll get into it.
Well, it's interesting you say that about his robotic voice, because I think it comes from his first language, which is Russian. He was actually born in Moscow and moved to the US later on, and Russian has a much flatter intonation pattern than American. So although he doesn't have any kind of accent, his intonation pattern is still very flat, so it sounds like he's a little bit robotic.
Yeah.
But I've also been watching a few of Lex Fridman's podcasts, on his own channel, and he's a much more interesting and spiritual person than first meets the eye. That's what I really like about him.
Yeah.
He really... So, of course, it's stereotyping, but sometimes I have the impression... Well, I box people, right? And I think, well, if you're an artificial intelligence researcher, so you work on robots all day, you're going to be very, very cold and clinical. And he does have that side to him, but he also talks about consciousness a lot. I can't even say the word. Consciousness. He talks about love. He talks about the universe. He talks about energy and spirituality. So he kind of balances those two things out. I think one of his main
James, if I could interject, maybe this is what I enjoy about Lex. The way I interpret it is that he's trying to really think about what a person is as he's almost trying to create a person, and so everything comes back to the core. And this is what he spent a lot of time thinking about: what is a person, what makes a person different from machines, because that's what will separate when the first successful AI comes out. You know, that will be what separates them from just a machine. You see what I mean? So that's why I feel like that's why he's grappled with these ideas of love.
Do you think his curiosity about human nature is just so he can make better robots? Mate, that's the way I took it. I'd be definitely open to hear something else, but that was a way, like I say, I feel like since the first time I've seen him, like you say, he comes across very measured, and then you get to watch a bit more of him, and he's very really thoughtful about human nature, and I would guess that's why, because that's what he's trying to create, and he's trying to see what differentiates people from a few of the things he's worked on. I know he talks a lot about self-driving cars, to give you an idea, and so just to make this concrete, you have to program a self-driving car to decide when to stop and when to continue and when to swerve So it's like, do you two know the trolley thought experiment?
Dilemma.
Yeah.
Yep. The one where basically you have to make a choice when you see like a trolley rolling down a train track, and there's a kind of a split on the train tracks, and you have a lever, and you have to decide whether it goes left or right. And on one side there's, I think, one person, and on the other side there's like a group of people, and I think the track is set on hitting the group of people, and you have to make a decision to proactively pull the lever or push the lever to kill one person but save the group of people, or do nothing, remain passive, and kill the group of people. I think that's the dilemma in a nutshell.
And then there are other variations of that, like.
Okay.
But yeah, that's it, Sal. And that just sounds like mental masturbation until you actually put it into practice, and that is exactly what you need to program into a car. Literally that. If I'm heading for a group of people, do I swerve and hit the child? Does it make a difference because I've got the camera on the front and I can see their height? Does it make a difference if I swerve and hit a child or swerve and hit an adult? Like, do I program yes to one and no to the other? These are all questions that have real life consequences. Well, real life and death consequences. So he's an interesting cat. Yeah. Have you come across him much, Sal?
I have an important question before I get into that. Is that a wine glass that you're drinking water out of?
No, it's a gin and tonic glass that I'm drinking gin and tonic out of.
Oh, okay. Good answer. Ooh, very nice. Sorry, you were asking me? I got distracted by the blue color.
Have you come across Lex Fridman?
I came across him, yes. I saw him first on the Joe Rogan podcast, as you also probably did. And I have a background in IT, so I kind of, watched a few episodes. And I mean, the question that I would ask right back at you is, why do you think somebody would watch Lex Fridman out of all the podcasts that exist right now about, improving yourself, or Joe Rogan, who kind of talks about with everybody? Lex Fridman, in a way, does something very similar to Joe Rogan, doesn't he? He has a plethora of very different guests on his show. So why would somebody watch him rather than Joe Rogan?
Why is it in either or? Quit your job and watch all of them.
I mean, I guess it's, when you listen to Rogan, what you like about Rogan is he's kind of the everyman, whereas Lex isn't the everyman. He's highly intelligent and he's in that field, But he does at the same time. I don't think he makes it unlistenable. You might just get a little bit more into the weeds with Lex in a good way. I think he's kind of more detailed about the questions, and
I would
probably more pigeonholed as well. To be fair, he's probably a little bit less variety than you get with Rogan, but at the same time, he's coming from a different field to Rogan.
I would say, if you want to understand a topic and have it simplified, Joe Rogan's your man. If you want to get out of your depth and out of your comfort zone, then Lex Fridman's your man. Well, that's definitely out of my comfort zone anyway.
Yeah, you are right, only now and then as well. It's not as if it now and then he gets right into it with people, but a lot of them are just a little bit another step into the weeds. Do you know what I mean? It's not. I don't want to put anyone off and think that. No,
it's not. It's not. I've got absolutely no knowledge of artificial intelligence at all, and it's very listenable. But it depends he adapts, of course, to his guests. Like, one of my favourites recently was with John Danaher, the famous jiu-jitsu coach, and it was absolutely incredible because John Danaher is kind of like the Yoda of jiu-jitsu training. He's trained so many of the top level guys in the world, and he used to be a philosophy professor at Columbia University before he went full-time in the jiu-jitsu training. So he translates all his philosophical knowledge into creating programs and creating systems for his jiu-jitsu players. And they had a fascinating conversation because Lex Fridman is also a black belt in jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And they had an incredible back and forth for about 3 hours. So, of course, they started talking about jiu-jitsu, but then they were talking about philosophy, about the meaning of life, meaning in life. And I might listen to that one again, actually. It was really a beautiful thing.
I think that's what I found interesting about my limited experience with Lex Fridman. I mean, I'm interested in So the question I asked you before about what's the difference between him and Joe Rogan in a way. For me personally, I mean, I had secretly already an answer prepared, but for me it is basically the fact that he kind of groups all the technological and philosophical and ethical topics and guests in one podcast. With Joe Rogan, you never know what you get in a certain way, and we talked about this in the past. Like sometimes you have Neil deGrasse Tyson, but then you have a comedian, and maybe if you're not so interested in one topic, you really have to go through a lot of material with Joe Rogan to kind of filter out what you like. And Lex Fridman is all evolved around a more limited, let's say, scope of topics. But if you're into that, then I guess it's a very you are right. A golden pot full of knowledge for you. And then the interesting thing is that he combines the technological aspects, but as you said, the trolley problem is not technological at all. That's an ethical problem.
But it translates into technology.
Which translates into technology. So he goes, connects the dots there. And even jiu-jitsu, I mean, in the end, sport itself may or may not be connected to artificial intelligence. Maybe you want to teach one day a robot to do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which will be the end of mankind, I suppose. But he also goes into these philosophical edges and explores philosophical topics and asks a lot of important questions that all relate, again, in one way or another to AI. And so, it's very interesting.
Yeah. Can I share a few of his Facebook posts?
Of course.
He's one of my favorite guys on Facebook, because they're usually one-liners, but
Facebook.
Incredible. Yeah. I think he just transfers it straight from Twitter. I'm not a tweeter. Your brain, number one, your brain is 73% water, drink up. But all right, perfect. I can do something with that. Number two, if you call yourself an expert, you're not an expert. Learning requires humility. Bam.
Smack.
Number three, I could go on all night, but I'll stick with three. Number three, silencing wrong ideas will eventually destroy our ability to discover the truth. But he just comes out with these every day or two. Zingers, yeah, real zingers.
And it's quite funny because he's not a confrontational character either, is he? So when he comes out with something like that, you kind of feel like he means it, you know?
Right.
He's not trying to get a reaction out of people, is he?
No.
Saying, it's a well thought out, one-liner.
Do you know what we've all got in common with Lex Fridman?
We're
Russian
humans. Some of us.
Well, do you know what Lex Fridman did a few months ago?
Straight white males.
Don't swear.
The 4x4 challenge.
Yeah, he did. So he's friends with David Goggins, and he did the 4x4 challenge, which we'll be taking on in 2 weeks. Oh God! So for people that don't know, it's every 4 hours you run 4 miles, and you do that for 48 hours.
So I haven't really thought it through yet because it's still 2 weeks away. But
you said yes.
It was you. I just say yes to life generally. So you propose something, suggest something, I say yes, and I think about it afterwards. So how is this going to work? Because basically you get up at a certain time. I'm not sure which one would be the best. At midnight? No, I
reckon starting at about 11. I'm going to do some research. I reckon start about 11 on Thursday night.
11 at night.
You can only sleep in little portions.
Right.
Because so if we start at 11, you run the first 6.5k, 4 miles, in however long, and then you start the next one 11 to 3. You start the next one at 7. You start the next one at 11, and you keep going until.
So screw up my circadian rhythm. Thank you very much.
It will destroy your circadian rhythm. So ignore Sachin Panda's excellent book for just a couple of days, and then get back into it.
It's gonna jet lag me for a week or so. Why are we doing this again? Why did we say yes again?
Challenge.
I guess
a challenge, right.
And I kind of thought it was like maybe a little event we could all do that we didn't have to all be together for, but you can kind of check in, and if you all go through it in the same days, that's something.
Exactly. How are we
rather than coming out somewhere and doing a marathon or whatever together? It's
right.
Little adventure.
How do we do this then? Because you're in England, we are in Rome, but also I think James and myself will probably not be in the same sphere when we're doing this, unless we want to meet at some point. But
You and I, Sal, can run a few together, and then I don't know. We'll work it out. We could do a few of them FaceTimed, or definitely catch up after every few at least. Maybe do a podcast halfway through and see how we're getting on. That'd be good fun.
a podcast while we're all sweating.
No, literally, maybe halfway through, just get on a podcast for 20 minutes and chat through it.
Right.
But back to Lex Fridman. Anyway, he's a cool cat. I think he's a positive force for humanity for sure.
He's trying to be a very emotional guy.
Yeah, exactly. Which is again like going back to the stereotypes. Like, well, robots, they must be robotic. But he's extremely emotional, and he shows a lot of vulnerability, which he doesn't have to. But he's very open and very honest with his feelings as well.
Yeah, he talks about love a lot, which I realized on the podcast that I saw, which was not that many, but it comes up quite a lot. And his view of life, and he kind of wants everybody to get along. You know, just it's a very pure, in a way, a very pure kind of worldview that he has. In fact, I saw some episodes then where he talked about some negative comments, which I had a feeling that they really got to him. So maybe also I'm not sure how long he's been now in the spotlight, because now, of course, he's gained a lot of fame recently. I'm not sure how long that's been going on, but maybe that's part of the learning process for him or something.
Can't be long, because he's a young man. I think maybe the last 5 years. I think he's only about 33.
It's kind of strange what you criticise him for as well. I can't really see what he's he seems like the kind of guy where if anyone says, "Oh, I didn't like Lex," you think, really? He seems like a nice guy, you know?
Yeah, but then again, there's a YouTube comment section. You know, it doesn't matter what you put on there. There's always going to be somebody who's like, meh, 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 you know.
How do you spell that, Sal? I should use that comment.
Yeah.
Okay. So how about maybe recommend one each off the top of your head, or a couple? Just name some of your favourites, maybe, because I've got a couple, maybe.
Well, okay, I'll go with John Danaher, that I've already mentioned, and also his talk with Georges St. Pierre, the famous GSP, Georges St. Pierre, the world champion UFC fighter. Both very interesting.
He's kind of philosophical, isn't he? He's quite a deep thinker.
Very.
And actually, probably that's the two sides of Lex joining, isn't it? Because he likes his jiu-jitsu and fighting and stuff. So, you know, he's a very philosophical guy and does a little bit of jiu-jitsu, whereas George is a fighter and he's a bit philosophical.
George puts the artist in. George St. Pierre puts the artist in martial arts. You know, he's very.
Is that a James Edgerton quote?
Man.
Is that a James Edgerton quote? Because it's true.
It is. I believe it's an original sequence of words. What about you, Dan? A couple of recommendations?
I quite like Whitney Cummings on Lex Fridman. That was a good one. Comedian lady. And he is always quite good with the comedians because he really enjoys it. And like I say, because of that perspective, the perspective that I see it from, that he's kind of watching human behaviour, I feel like he really enjoys the comedians because he kind of, you know, there's always that mystery about the comedian, about what's going to come next. And he likes to kind of get his head around that. So Whitney Cummings and Tim Dillon was on there. He's really good. And I quite like him with Eric Weinstein. And he's quite, is it Weinstein? Yeah.
Weinstein.
One of both was
adamant about that.
I think Stein was the wrong one and Steen is or was it?
Well, anyway, Brett's brother.
Brett's brother.
The mathematician, not the director. Oh, I've lost your sound then.
Yeah.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, you're back. You're back.
Back in the room. Yeah, Eric, I find him kind of quite a difficult character at times, but I feel like Lex kind of laughs when he's being silly, but doesn't ruin his point, you know? So, yeah, I like
that. Was a good one. Yeah, I like that one as well, Dan, because like you say, he was managing that conversation very, very well.
Managing it very
Eric Weinstein is a tricky customer. He's quite abrasive, isn't he? Quite confrontational. Yeah. He says, "I'll tell you what's wrong with you." I'm going, all right. I thought we were having a good time.
It as well. He addressed it in that. I didn't even see him getting the criticism, but he was addressing people criticising him for every time someone asked him a question, he'd come back with a question and stuff like that, you know. So but that was a good listen, and I like him as well. I think his heart's in the right place. Eric Weinstein. Those are my 3 recommendations. Sal, which ones do you enjoy?
Your top 2, the 2 that you've listened to?
the top of my head, I would say Daniel Kahneman, the author of Thinking Fast, Slow.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this anarchist guy. I always forget his name though. Very peculiar. He's also been on the Joe Rogan podcast. At least he's a self-proclaimed anarchist. I'm not sure if he really is an anarchist. What's his name again? Something with M. Maybe, I'm not sure. Anyway, it was a great conversation. I don't remember the name of the guy, but
he's such an anarchist.
They were touching on some very interesting ideas and topics from a different point of view that I didn't consider before. I didn't kind of buy his. He's also a professional troll, he says. Yes.
In Michael Malice.
Yes, exactly.
That's quite recent. Yeah.
I'll give you one more if I could. Noam Chomsky, the great linguist and political commentator. Yeah, he had Noam on because Noam is a colleague of his at MIT, or was, but Noam Chomsky's still around, sharing ideas after all this time. That was incredible because Lex Fridman was visibly, even his voice, he was really emotional. He was so honoured and very genuine.
Gotta check that one out.
Check that out, man. Yeah, definitely. Big Gnome.
20 minutes sharp, ladies and gentlemen.
Big Gnome still spitting in 2021. Still on the mic. Oh, you gotta go, Sal?
Yes.
Alright, that's enough Lex for one night.
Exactly. Gonna do a part 2 maybe once we've seen a few more. Who knows? Maybe we're gonna have him on as a guest one day.
Maybe.
Never say never.
Definitely, man.
All right.
Definitely, man.
Wrapping this up, sir.
Cheers, brothers.
You're the rapper.
Three-headed Hydra. Lex Fridman. Check him out.
Check him out, Lex Fridman. Spitting spirituality and AI in equal measure. Bruh.
Yes.
Peace out.
Ciao.
Ciao.